What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Sunday morning live stream ahead of the Foxwood Resort Casino 301. Nascar heads into New Hampshire, and here to help me update our betting card, figure out what we're doing over on DraftKings, and just talk general nonsense is Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's up, Kyle? Yeah, I'm excited to get a little bit deeper into this race, especially knowing that my boy Bubba just got moved to the rear for unapproved changes to the car. Him and I think four other drivers, Ryan Preece included, all moved to the back. So
Yep.
this is
Yeah.
becoming a weekly thing of in NASCAR.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very much part of the plan and part of why we're here on Sunday mornings to kind of update. Just adjusting my lights a little bit so they don't blind anybody. Perfect. There we go. Yeah. So we were just talking a little bit before. Um, Shouts to our viewers who are hooking us up with awesome information and whatnot. But our buddies over at William Hill hung a really nice number on Ricky Stenhouse versus Chris Buescher. So if that's something you have access to, I would recommend going to check that out. I was also looking at Stenhouse versus Bubba Wallace, which, as you mentioned, Bubba Wallace now starting in the back. Feels like an opportunity, especially with Bubba Wallace minus 125 and Stenhouse minus 105. That might be an interesting way to go as well. But yeah, we figure we'll jump in, we'll talk some numbers, we'll look at what we're doing, we'll see if there's any betting card changes, any updates that we want to make, and then switch over to DraftKings, make a couple lineups, figure out beyond our core that we talked about last time what we want to do. So that is what we're here for. Brian, Denny Hamlin is per DraftKings your big favorite, plus 475. Truex, Larson, Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, like a real tight group.
Yeah.
I think we're still riding the Party Marty train, huh?
Yeah, no, I'm partying 2 weekends in a row here. I still think that Martin Truex, he's kind of put it together the last couple of weeks, and this is a track where he really excels at, as he's been the best driver here over the last 10 times visiting New Hampshire. So I do think that this is the week that we're fully partying with Marty in the winner's circle potentially. So he's the guy that I'm leaning right now.
Yep. I like that call. I'm still interested in Eric Almirola. Maybe not from an outright. I mean, just that 80-1 is nice, but a top 10 bet I think is something I could get on board with at plus money. I think you can get 2-1 or better most places, and a top 5 bet's going to pay 13-1, which is considering we're talking about Hamlin at 475 and Truex at 5-1. Not saying he'll get there, but those odds make a lot of sense. And if you are riding the waves with Eric Almirola like I am, that could be an interesting way to look as well.
Yeah, we talked about this just prior to jumping on again too, is the fact that like DraftKings, for instance, they've expanded out their betting card to top 20s, and it's still open. I know they had been doing this earlier in the season, I think, but it was only the first couple days that the books were open. But now they're straight up into race day, like straight up until green. Now you can be betting still plus money on an Eric Jones top 20, plus money on Ryan Newman top 20, and then one of my favorite this weekend's even money on Chase Briscoe top 20. So I think those are great ways to attack a race that you're just hoping they defeat half the field. And which is way more likely than a top 5 or even a top 10 for these specific drivers.
100%. And when we're digging into the numbers and trying to find guys that make sense for the back half of our DK lineups, sometimes we find guys that we think have the ability to pop, and being able to bet them at top 20 instead of just jumping to the top 10. Even if we like them that high, you can kind of supplement your top 10 bet with a top 20. So as long as they perform, decently well, you should at least make your money back. And then, in theory, if they have a really good race, and then you win all the monies, and you're feeling great heading into another week. In the top 10 market, any names that you want to get to? I mean, Stenhouse at 7-1 could make some sense. I like Cole Custer. I don't know if I like him at 10-1 or at 6-1, even to top 10. Feels a little aggressive, but it's funny that as we go through the betting board and the different odds, it's like big drop
Yep.
off to each
Yeah.
to another
Huge.
level. It's like ones, barely 2-1, and then all of a sudden it's 6-1. So
Yeah, no,
kind of
I mean,
interesting.
I know the number. It's obviously the number for a reason because they don't expect these guys to be up in that range of outcomes. But I mean, Custer at 6-1, and then Briscoe at
Yeah.
9.5-1 to potentially top 10. Both of these guys have shown it before that they're able to do that. And like Briscoe, for instance, he's just 2 weeks ago he finished inside the top 10. So it is shown the ability for this to happen of late as well. So like I like Briscoe's number more, almost getting 10-1 on a potential top 10. But even Cole Custer is somebody that I'd be willing to put, as you would say, a few shekels on, just to throw it in there, hoping that it happens, but then also be betting him in the top 20 market or in driver matchups.
Yeah, and I think that's it's a good way to attack it and kind of spread out the risk a little bit. And if it all comes to fruition, then you're feeling great and loving life. And if you don't hit all the winners, then you're at least spreading it out, because you could feel real strongly about a couple guys and then not necessarily come to fruition, but you're like, this guy makes sense and the numbers add up, and it could be the reason. So, and then all of a sudden you just kind of hedge a little bit there, and making money and saving your butt for the weekend. So that's always something I can get on board with. Should we head over and look at some DraftKings stuff and see what we can cobble together?
I have a few ideas for this week.
Okay, let's head over to DraftKings and let's talk about some of the players that are jumping out to you, because I think there's some opportunities this week. What are you looking at?
Yeah, so I mean, we talked about Martin Truex, and I'm starting to think that I think a good way to attack these NASCAR DraftKings lineups, very similar to the NFL, where you're stacking teams. I know it's not necessarily the same kind of thing, but these guys are trying to work together, and I think that's why for me, like at the top of the board, I'm really looking at a Truex Hamlin combo. And I know that was on my core, but that's kind of like the starting point for me, knowing that both of these guys have got to start putting their stuff together, and Hamlin in particular, because he has yet to win a race. And with Truex starting in the front row, he's got the potential to be the dominator early. Hamlin starting kind of middle of the 10th, he's starting 6th. He's got the potential of the placement points and also some dominator points of leading the race. With both of these guys running inside the top 5 the majority of the day, you're looking at a pretty good floor. Now, if they both fall back, you're effed, because I mean, then you're not getting very much, but that's a good starting point with both of them being 10 or less. And then you can maybe fill it in with some crappy guys towards the back end of the salary, and then fill it in with maybe even a like a William Byron starting 16th. I mean, I know he's 10-6, but he's a guy who's been running high, and you're looking at those placement points. So I'd be looking at him, a Logano, even though I
Well, I was just going to bring up Joey Logano because he's somebody that makes a lot of sense. He's $1,000 cheaper than Byron. He's a guy that on flat tracks tends to run really well. On shorter tracks tends to run really well. On intermediate packages tends to run really well. What's his betting odds this week?
Yeah, but he seems to know when a certain particular person in me bets him, and then he sucks. So that's why I can't get behind him.
It's like Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski have notifications set on for you, and as soon as you say their name, they're like, "Ah, shit, it's not the week."
This is the Baker Mayfield of NASCAR for me now. Is Logano and Keselowski combined?
That 10-1 number is nice. I might just have to go my betting card, go Truex, go Logano, and log out. I think that might be the plan.
Well, maybe because I'm not betting him, it'll
when you fade him, things go well. When we're both on board, then he's gonna crash in the first lap. And,
yeah, exactly.
But I feel like starting Truex Logano gives you so much opportunity and so much like wiggle room that you could do a lot of things as you kind of cruise on down.
Yeah, and then also something of note was Christopher Bell yesterday won, I guess, his third consecutive race in the Xfinity Series at New Hampshire, and the fact that they're not using any of the grip compound on the track, and he got to race it and win, I think that's going to play huge dividends today. So I do think that Bell is at 7,700 starting ninth, has a good chance to potentially jump into the top of the field early.
Okay, but are we concerned that in GPPs everybody else sees, oh, Christopher Bell ran well yesterday, he's not that expensive, let's throw him in our lineup, and all of a sudden he's 35% owned in the big GPP?
Yeah, but at the same time, the salary savings allows you to add the guys that people probably dumped in favor of Christopher Bell inside that top 10.
Sure. And the thing about like being different is you don't have to be different with all 6-7 slots. You want to be different at
all it takes is a couple of guys.
Yeah, because eating the chalk isn't always a terrible idea as long as you can kind of mix in stuff that people may not be going to, and find ways to do it. And the other ways to do that is to leave salary on the table as well. If you can leave an extra $1,500, you're going to be different for the most part, and make some moves. So I'm starting a lineup: Truex, Logano, Stenhouse, Almirola. Kind of feeling that. Truex would be my dominator and move up ability, and maybe get some dominator points from Logano late. And then Stenhouse. And I love Almirola this week. I keep bringing him up, so he's probably gonna crash in the first lap and not finish the race. But I feel like he has a legitimate chance at a top 10 or so finish this weekend, when you consider he's starting 22nd. Bubba moved behind him. We got other people moving behind him. That's even closer to that top 20. Nice opportunity there.
Yeah, I just looking at the odds board, this race has a large range of outcomes in terms of who's going to win, who's going to finish where, and I think that's reflected in the betting odds this week with the tiers and also the large drop-offs in terms of people being grouped together and their expectations by the bookmakers. So a guy like Almirola could pop, as we've seen before, and he's shown speed on certain kinds of tracks, and others he's sucked. I mean, put it simply. So I'm not really on his side this weekend.
That's a great thing for me.
It's just so hard to go against.
That's what I want to hear. That makes me feel so happy.
Yeah, but I mean, this race is going to be really interesting to see who winds up finishing at the top of the leaderboard, with just basing it off of the betting board. This is probably the first race in couple months that we've seen so many people so closely knitted together at the top of the board.
There's always been like Kyle Larson at like 2-1 when everyone else is 6 or 7-1.
Yeah. So even the experts really don't have a good handle on who is supposed to win this race.
Yeah. Have you thought more about whether we should be fading or following Brad Keselowski and Matt DiBenedetto, who have questionable rides heading into 2021, 2022?
I would be more inclined to go with DiBenedetto, knowing that he doesn't have a ride secured. And he's racing for a job now. Like the rest of this season is an audition for him to sign on somewhere else going into 2022. Whereas Brad Keselowski, I mean, for all intents and purposes, he's going to be racing for Roush Fenway next season, being an owner driver. I mean, that's pretty much guaranteed. So as an owner as well, what is the incentive for him other than just continuing to do what he's doing, get into the playoffs and all that kind of stuff? So I don't see him being somebody as inclined to push the issue towards the front.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Matt D is interesting, starting 14th, 7,500 over on DK. If you look at his betting odds, he's plus 105 to top 10. So that means if you assume that's pretty spot on, he moves up 4 or 5 spots, gets inside that top 10, runs maybe a few fast laps, has a really solid race, and doesn't crush you. Go ahead.
Yeah, one issue with DiBenedetto, though, is prior to 2019, he really was bad here. I mean, I know he wasn't driving with a good car,
right?
I mean, he's been driving with Wood Brothers last year. He finished 6th. Prior to that, it was Levine Family Racing. He finished 5th. But prior to that, his best finish was a 28th in 2018. And then he actually did that twice. And every other one was outside the top 30.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
It proves to me that maybe he's not as skilled on this particular kind of track, and it's more based on his car, which his car is good, but
yeah, his average finish in the last 6 races on short flat tracks, 11.2, which is good for what, 3rd, 6th, 9. He's a top 10 on average in his last 6, so that's something that garners my interest. Your Briscoe's popping on this short track model that I'm looking at. It's kind of interesting. If I run a lineup where I have Truex and Logano and Stenhouse, Almirola and Matt D, I could drop down to Briscoe, but that's, I guess leaving 2,400 on the table will definitely make me different.
I was just going to say, that's where you really run into your own internal battle of not needing to fill up your bankroll and just picking guys based on their value at this particular track, not what their salary is, which is really difficult for me too. I always feel it necessary. I need to spend as much money as possible.
And if it's hard for us, it's hard for everyone else.
Yeah.
So it may not, the more uncomfortable you can feel within reason, obviously, the maybe better chance you have it. If you're trying to if you're playing, a bunch of lineups and you're trying to take down the big GPP. Now, if you're playing cash games and you're just trying to be in the top 50%, doing this isn't necessarily the move. I think eating more of the chalk in cash is going to be the way to go. But if you're trying to win tournaments, if you're trying to take down big prize pools, if you're playing, 6, 8, 10, 15 lineups, whatever it may be, being a little more aggressive is definitely not a bad thing.
Yeah, and it's really trying to find those like diamonds in the rough of guys at the back end who are those 5,000, 6,000 guys who will move up the potential of double digit spots and not get into that crash and get multiple laps behind and all that kind of stuff.
Anybody back in that sub 6K range, or even you could even include like McDowell and like we obviously like Custer, who's starting 21st at 6,300, but anyone beyond him that you're thinking maybe there's something there if we're looking to save a little salary?
I hit on this on the show, just looking at our initial leans, and that's Justin Haley at 4,700. Now starting, I think he'll be starting 28th now with all the guys moving to the back.
Uh-huh.
I mean, at $4,700, what more are you asking for other than just not to get negative at that point?
Drive in circles the rest of the race and not crush me.
Just avoid accidents. I mean, even if he falls back a few spots, he's likely to get you at least single digit points, and at least you're not getting a 0 or a negative. So, and he did place, I think he was top 6 yesterday in the Xfinity race, and it's something that he's done pretty well in the Xfinity series. So he's semi familiar with the track as well. So that's kind of, occasionally I like to lean with those super cheap dudes and just hope that they move up.
Yeah. Appreciate everyone hopping in and joining the show. If you're liking what you see, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, turn on the bell notifications. We're trying to go live each and every Sunday. If you have questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the chat. Brian and I are just talking about our betting cards, talking about some final decisions over on DraftKings and getting ready for the race that starts in less than 30 minutes. Brian, it should be another fun one. It's going to be a good sports day, I think. I watched the end of the Open Championship and get ready for some NASCAR. I got the F1 race on the DVR, so lots of stuff to watch today.
You haven't seen that yet?
I haven't watched it yet. I was, as I mentioned to you, I was planting a tree. So normally coffee and F1 are my pre-NASCAR, pre-live stream go-to, but mix it up today just to keep everyone on their toes.
Well, let me just say, make sure your seatbelt's buckled for the drop of the green.
Wow, I'm excited. Very, very excited.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have one lineup: Logano, Truex, Almirola, Matt D, Stenhouse, and Briscoe. There's your $1 million maker right there.
Everyone can send their thank yous to.
Yes, I will link my Venmo or my PayPal, and you can 10% me off when you win the millionaire. Um,
Okay, I got a question for you. Are you still feeling the Daniel Suarez hype on DK?
The number just is weird to me. Like, I feel like people are just going to completely overlap. I think his ownership is going to be super low. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's something. It's my brain, right? Like, whenever we're talking betting or whatever, I like to fade what everybody else is going to do, and I like to, and when something like a total is set, that's way too high. These two teams can't score that much, and what happens inevitably? Both teams score a ton of points, and it goes
Yep.
over, or whatever. And Suarez at 8,900, I can't imagine anybody's getting to him. He's starting 31st. I mean, I feel like he could have a few fast laps, finish 15th, and pay off that salary. But
I think there's definitely something there because I try to use both the betting side and the DK side to kind of gauge what the value is there. And Daniel Suarez right now is currently 1 to 2 to top 20.
yeah.
So that's telling me he's at least moving up 11 spots. Like that's the expectation. So for 8,900, I probably want a little bit more than just getting inside the top 20, starting, I think 29th now. But that's a good starting point for that amount of salary.
Let me throw a name out there that we haven't really talked about in obviously our preview and then today. Chase Elliott starting third. Should we be talking about him more? He's a guy that can run pretty well on flat tracks. Obviously, his New Hampshire results aren't up there with Keselowski and Truex and some of the guys we've been talking about. But this is also a guy who just won, who's running really well, who will probably be in the conversation to win the championship after winning it last year. Like, is it just a matter of there's other guys we like better, or do you think there is something there that we should maybe be considering him a little bit more?
Man, it's the Hendrick cars the last couple of races.
Mm-hmm.
They've kind of, I don't know if the pack has kind of slightly caught up to them or they've fallen back near the pack a little bit. So I don't think they hold as much of an advantage as we saw when Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott were finishing 1 and 2 pretty much every other week. So at $9,800, I could definitely get on board. I feel like he's a similar value as Truex, just with less success at this track. So you're kind of basing it on what the Hendrick cars have been able to do as a whole throughout this season, not necessarily what they've been doing. So I'm a little more worried than placing my hope in Party Marty, but
yeah.
I mean, at less than 10K for a guy starting so far up front who could lead a ton of laps, yeah, it's good value.
Would you be pivoting off Truex to go to Elliott, or would you consider using both of them, trying to get a bunch of dominator points from the two, and then looking for movement points and fastest laps and that kind of stuff from the rest of your lineup?
I would probably pivot away from Marty, and I would probably pair Elliott with, I'd go to the very top of the board and probably go Kyle Larson starting 10th.
Let's go.
Hope that both of them were able to kind of maneuver themselves into the front of the pack and help each other out. Although, I mean, it's not the same as like team sports, but they are driving for the same owner. So they do have to work together slightly. But I just don't see that as being as sure of a finish as the two old veteran in Hamlin and a Martin Truex.
Here's the lineup: Elliott and Larson, as you mentioned. Throw Daniel Suarez in there because that price tag makes no sense. So obviously play him, and then you finish out your lineup with Briscoe, Custer, and Stenhouse Jr.
Hey, that's a nice lineup. I do thoroughly like that.
Leave 700 on the table. I think there's opportunity there.
Let's go. I'm going to build that exact lineup.
This isn't going to work well, Brian. We can't be simpatico. You know the rules.
That is very true.
Okay.
But man, I don't know. The past couple of weeks, I've really gotten on board with pairing guys from the same team, starting near the top 10.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good tactic.
I think it makes a lot of sense. A lot of times, you know, if you think one's going to be there, maybe they're both going to be there, pushing each other, helping each other out. So even if they don't win, you know, they can be 1-2, 1-2-3, something like that.
Unless you have an Alex Bowman, Kyle Larson situation where they crash each other out. I mean,
sure, yeah, I mean that's always in the mix, but and then you just need Ross Chastain to stay out of the way of your drivers, and you'll be looking golden. We're heading into north of 25 minutes. We're going to be signing off here probably about the 30-minute mark. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to drop them in the chat. Brian and I are just finishing up our initial thoughts. Brian, our best bets. I'll pull those up right now from last week. Obviously, last race we hit both of our top fives. I had Blaney, you had Truex. You're going back to the Truex well this week with the top three. I'm taking out Eric Almirola minus the 110 over Ross Chastain. Any other Sunday best bets you want to sneak into the card just before we get off and call it a show and get ready for the race?
Well,
I mean, your top 20 bet on Briscoe at even money is pretty solid.
Yeah, so I'm gonna add that to my card as one of my favorite bets right there for sure. Like I think will definitely be something I will be betting on. And then looking at the matchup board here, another one, not just Stenhouse versus Bubba Wallace, but I'm gonna go Cole Custer minus 115 v Bubba this weekend. I think Cole Custer has shown much more at these style of tracks, as in particular at New Hampshire, than Bubba, who's never finished inside the top 20 here. So I think Cole Custer has it in him to place ahead my boy Bubba 2311. Better get your crap together, or else MJ is going to be sending you through the roof for another driver. And then looking further down the board at the matchups, if we're betting Daniel Suarez, if they're expecting him to finish inside the top 20 and potentially move up like that, he's priced as he is on DraftKings. I'm going Daniel Suarez plus 110 versus Ross Chastain.
Yes.
Plus money in a matchup for a guy that is expected to run as well as what Daniel Suarez is here. Yeah, give me. I'm going with that. So Chase Briscoe, Cole Custer versus Bubba, and Daniel Suarez versus Ross Chastain are all added as my
Ross Chastain.
best
He did not see it coming. It's a pile on Ross Chastain week. Which you know what's going to happen, right, Brian? He's going to pop.
Ross Chastain's going to finish top five. Yeah,
we're going to be sitting there, and he's halfway through the race. He's going to be running in the front. Like, what do we do? What happened here?
Yeah, and I mean, it would be fantastic, but at the same time, probably bad. Ross Chastain gets on the mic and just says, Those SOBs on Angle of Pursuit always talking crap.
Oh man, I wish we had that much power, Brian. I wish Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano and Ross Chastain had text alerts set up for our conversations. Unfortunately, we do not have that kind of pull.
No.
Yeah, I think those bets make sense. Truex top 3. Briscoe top 20, Custer over Bubba, Suarez over Chastain, my Almirola over Chastain, Almirola top 10. I will throw that in there plus 220. Yeah, I think it's setting up to be a nice week and a good card, and I'm really happy with the lineups we built. So I'm gonna have to get those into a couple contests for the race. I'm going to get ready to go watch the F1 race as well and kind of dual screen it. As you can see behind me, I got 4 TVs, so I won't miss a moment of anything.
Let's get ready. That's all I
absolutely. Can say. Appreciate everyone hopping on, everyone joining the show. Good luck this week with your bets. Good luck this week with your DraftKings lineups or FanDuel or wherever you're playing NASCAR DFS. For Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to you guys next time.